All right, I'm showing 301, so I'm going to start. Welcome. I hope everyone's having a good Florida Drupal camp, even though none of us are down there in Florida to enjoy what I hear is 78-degree and sunny weather in Orlando today, which is certainly nicer than it was last year when I did make it down to Orlando. Anyway, this is drag and drop content management for Drupal websites. I'm Chris O'Donnell. My co-presenter is Aaron Couch.
Hello. It is snowy here in Philadelphia right now.
There we are. I'm a digital strategist at Promet, and Aaron is our director of technology. Just a few housekeeping slides to get through before we get going. If you've been here at all today, you are familiar with the code of conduct. So I will not go through it in detail. Just simply stated, we do not tolerate harassment in any form at the conference. And if you have any concerns or issues with the code of conduct, please contact either Amy June or Mike Anello, and they'll do everything they can to help you. Also, tomorrow is contribution day from 12 to 3:30 p.m. Contribution does not just include people that can, hammer out PHP and Twig code for Drupal. There's lots of things that you can do to contribute to Drupal that don't involve writing code. So if you're interested at all in helping, please come by tomorrow. 12 o'clock, there's going to be a session on sort of how to contribute. And then there'll be opportunities to contribute immediately, again, whether you're a developer or a strategist or a project manager or whatever. Okay, let me get through the one sort of who we are slide real quick. Promet Source has been around since 2003, and we've been a Drupal shop since 2009. Our mail goes to Chicago, but we're, for all practical purposes, a remote company. I'm coming to you today from Richmond, Virginia, and Aaron is up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We are currently hiring, so if you're a senior Drupal developer or a solution architect type and are looking for a new challenge, please check us out. We'd love to talk to you. Okay, so why are we here? We started thinking, wouldn't it be neat if there was something out there that combined the ease of use of Squarespace with the flexibility and scalability of Drupal? And there's something out there like that, and in fact, it's called Drupal. Drupal can provide the point-and-click content creation experience that many people want, and get from, say, a Wix or a Squarespace, but still need, a CMS like Drupal that's flexible and customizable and can scale to a huge site. So how does this magic happen? Well, we, and by we, I mean mostly Aaron, are going to, over the next 40 minutes or so, show you how you can use Drupal to do this. So there are essentially two components to our solution. Emulsify, which is a component-based Drupal theme, and Provis, which is our Drupal Kickstart, which is still at Drupal 8.9. I don't think we pushed it to 9 yet. That's built with reusable components. So everything we're talking about here today is open source. You can go to our Git repository, download Provis, and get going with it immediately after the session if you want to. So let's think high level for a minute about the stuff that a typical business or nonprofit or government agency might need right now. They're all under pressure to improve their digital services across the board. They're all trying to push more transactions and interactions online. They were trying to do this stuff before COVID, and obviously the pandemic has made it even that much more important to try to allow people to do things remotely. Partly to reduce costs and speed responsiveness, but also just in general because, everything in life is sort of more digitally connected now, and businesses and government agencies have to keep up. Everybody is seeking the holy grail of, create once, publish everywhere. And, none of this is happening without copious amounts of coffee. However, there are some challenges out there, on the road to a highly scalable, point-and-click site builder tool. Some organizations are just wildly unique. They have missions that are, very bespoke, or they have internal systems and processes that just really aren't replicated anywhere else. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're special snowflakes, and they're just never going to be able to use some standardized SaaS tool to manage their web infrastructure. They need the flexibility and customizability that something like Drupal delivers. However, no matter how much of a special snowflake any particular website is, the reality is most of them, are composed primarily of a lot of the same things, right? They've all got media galleries. They're all producing lists of content, which if you're using Drupal, you're doing in views. They've all got a search feature. They all generally have embedded maps. They're all connecting to their social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can call these sort of common components, these common items, components. So what really happens is, even though we might be building very large, very complex, very different websites, two very different websites are in fact actually going to have a pretty big component of features or components that are essentially shared. And because this is a presentation, and every presentation should have one Venn diagram at least, we will express that with a Venn diagram. Since I brought up Venn diagrams, I kind of have to do this one, right? Okay, so the ideal here is that, if we have a CMS with a really flexible content model to adapt to all the unique needs of these disparate organizations, but if it's shipped with a library of reusable, pointy, clicky components that would allow you to really jumpstart your site building, that would be like a really great benefit, something a lot of people could use. And that's what we're trying to do. So to kind of reiterate here, Drupal, as we all, I think, will agree, is really great at content modeling and really great at dealing with really complex, unique one-off content models. Drupal is also really great at users and workflows and managing all of that. Traditionally, Drupal hasn't been a great tool for point-and-click site building. Wix and Squarespace have done that really well, but Wix and Squarespace aren't particularly flexible for larger applications. They aren't really scalable up to a site that's getting millions and millions of hits and is being managed by a large team. And if it's a government application, I doubt anybody at Wix or Squarespace had ever heard of FedRAMP hosting requirements. So Drupal can do both. We can deliver a Wix or Squarespace-like site building experience at the back end of Drupal, and we can do it without sacrificing the advantages that Drupal already has over those more sort of locked down, feature-rich component systems like Wix. And now I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. He's going to get into more of the technical details of exactly how we're doing this. And I have stopped sharing, Aaron, so you should be good to go.
Great, thanks. Let me grab that. As I was scrolling through some of the participants, I don't want to call anyone out, but I noticed someone had Bernie Sanders in the background. That almost that was pretty funny. Awesome. So yes, again, part of our thesis is that Drupal is really great at content modeling, and the newer tools in Layout Builder and some of the contributed modules that are being added along with Layout Builder, with a componentized approach to both site building and Drupal theming, are able to be combined in an approach that can really deliver the right amount of flexibility for clients with the amount of with the right amount of constraints that will help maintain brand governance and consistency across the digital experience. So let me walk through that approach. So our first kind of tool in the tool shed is Emulsify. Emulsify is a Drupal 8 and WordPress starter theme that gives us a huge lift in building reusable components. Emulsify combines both a starter component library as well as Storybook, which is a tool for building user interface components. There are a number of component-based themes for Drupal, and I've included a link to some of them, as well as some other Drupal theming resources at the end of the presentation. So what is the problem we're trying to solve with what we're calling a component-based, component-driven theming? The problem is that traditionally Drupal theming, even when done kind of the Drupal way in the past, often creates brittle CSS and JavaScript that is hard to use across different projects, and it's hard to build up a reusable set of components. Again, part of our premise is that many, and isn't that bold of a premise, is that many of the widgets and components that we use across sites are very similar across projects. So we want to have a theming strategy that allows us to leverage those and allows us to build and increase the quality of components across projects as opposed to kind of starting from scratch. So traditional Drupal and CMS theming in general often suffers from CSS and JavaScript selectors that are very tied to the context and the implementation detail that they've been built for. I'll show what that looks like in a minute. As well as theming for kind of the page, and often globally in ways that's hard to switch context. Lastly, it's making it harder to reuse the traditional Drupal theming often makes it harder to reuse across projects. I understand that I might be having some audio issues, so I'm going to try and turn off my video and see if that improves it. If not, I might just, excuse me. I might just switch my headset. Let me know, thanks, if that doesn't improve. So our solution is to use, excuse me, sorry, I'm told that my headset has not improved. I'm going to switch my audio. Thanks for the thanks for your patience there. Is that any better, Chris? Chris, you're muted, and I'm relying on.
There's still there's background noise. That your voice is clear. There it is. Now talk.
Okay.
That's better.
All right. Thanks. My apologies for that. I'm hoping that you won't hear any kid noise in the background, since my microphone is having an issue. But that's kind of how it's going these days. Anyway, so our solution for component-driven theming is to use an atomic design methodology to isolate the parts of the components that we're building. Implementation-wise, that comes out in styling and isolating the number of selectors in the theme, and to use our Storybook component library. Let's talk about what that means. What you're looking at is a standard carousel component. These are one of the types of components that you see across almost every site. So with traditional Drupal theming, what you're looking at on the left is the location of the SaaS. One thing that you'll notice is that the implementation of that carousel is embedded in all of the paragraph CSS And on the right, you can see that the naming around the CSS selector has paragraph tied to it, and thus the CSS and JavaScript that we're building is tied to the implementation detail of the fact that we're using a paragraph. So this is a solution that is something that is very common across CMS theming, and has the shortcoming of the actual CSS and JavaScript and templating all being tied to the name of the paragraph that we're creating, and the fact that it's a paragraph at all as opposed to a different type of Drupal component like a block or a content type. Our solution with component-based theming is to isolate all of the items that go into the theming into a grouping that is tied to the actual component. And this is kind of what it means to use a component-based theme. So you might, if you're not familiar with JavaScript, HTML, and Twig templating, and even if you are, you can see that what we're looking at is the assets that we would use to create the paragraph, or excuse me, to create the carousel that we just saw. You'll notice that it's not tied at all to the Drupal implementation. So if we wanted to use this for another project, we would be able to without tearing out and decoupling it from the other paragraph and context implementations. On the Drupal end, we're taking all of the items that we're building in the component, and we're embedding them in the template. So if you're not familiar with templating, the important part is this embed the actual organism in the Drupal template. So instead of building all of the assets within the Drupal templating and CSS and JavaScript world, we separated that into a component system that we're able to embed into Drupal. Our methodology for this uses atomic design. Atomic design, if you're not familiar with it, breaks the all of the assets of a site into component parts that start with the atom, are built up into molecules, organisms, templates, and pages. So this is what that looks like. An example search field. The atoms are the individual buttons, inputs, labels. Those are built into a molecule, which is placed into an organism. What this means in terms of implementation is that if we are going to reuse this molecule in a different organism, then it's going to look and act exactly the same because of the type of isolation that we've used and the atomic design methodology and naming convention. Additionally, we use a tool called Storybook. Storybook is a component library tool that gives a preview of what the component or atom, molecule, or organism will look like outside of the Drupal context. In our workflow, we've adopted this tool to be able to both look at components as individual assets, not tied to projects, to be able to isolate the implementation of the work, and to improve our quality assurance and we're especially focused at Promet Source on accessibility, and this lets us focus on that outside of the Drupal context. So what this means for us is that we have a different workflow in which a front-end developer creates all of the components outside of Drupal. This is one of the outcomes of this that I think a lot of front-end developers feel happy about, but also is something that means that we're not just tied to Drupal front-end themers in terms of our implementation. As I mentioned, we're able to QA right away outside of the CMS with this Storybook tool. So this is why we're using this methodology. And I would, Emulsify is a project that we try and contribute to that 4Kitchens created, and is a great tool that I'd recommend you check out, and is available at emulsify.info. Is also something that there's a WordPress theme for it too, so it's not just Drupal. So our focus goes from page building to building components that can be used across pages and in different contexts that weren't necessarily designed for. One of the common questions that comes up in a project is one of the Drupal details around, do you use blocks or paragraphs? One of the results of this methodology is that we can really build up our quality array of front-end components without necessarily caring about the Drupal details. Blocks can be placed in Layout Builder really easily and have some are in core, while paragraphs have a little bit of a better revisioning capability. But ultimately for us, we're able to switch back and forth across projects. Another part of our Drupal implementation is to create consistent view modes within our Drupal entities. That's something that allows us to use the same components across different content types, and that's something I'll show in a minute. So that's an overview of our approach from a theming perspective and a front-end tooling perspective. Now I'm jumping into Layout Builder and how we create and put together the tooling that allows content creators and editors to use these components and give them the power and flexibility that they consistently need across projects while maintaining, again, the brand consistency that our clients really need. So what you're looking at right now is on the left is the Layout Builder tool. One of the things that we combine that with is, again, as I've mentioned, a standard array of widgets that we're able to use across projects. And I'm going to demo that in a minute, but you can see some of the design components that we offer, lines, buttons, tabs, etc., as well as some of the widget components like banners, social media feeds, and we'll look at this link group component in a minute. We've we offer this, of course, to our clients, but we've also created Provis, which is an open source Drupal Kickstarter that combines the components that I have been referencing, along with some Drupal content types and other entities that are really consistent across a lot of our projects. It gives us a step forward in terms of site building and lowering the cost of delivery for our clients. It's something that, again, is open source and public on GitHub, and we're about to put over on Drupal.org. So if you're interested, you can go and check that out and adopt some of the methodologies that we're using, or at least check it out as an example of the way we're leveraging these Drupal tools. With Provis, we have, again, added a content model that includes a lot of the common content types that our clients typically use across projects. And we've combined that with a component library that includes a lot of components that are really similar across projects. I'm going to jump over to a demo of that so we can see what this looks like. In action.
Hi, this is Aaron Cowden.
I'm gonna play a video of the demo. If that isn't accessible or doesn't work, I'm just gonna jump over and give the demo live. So Chris, if you can help me, if you can help let me know if that's if the video is working.
Yeah. Right now we're seeing you still, so.
Great.
Promet source.
Yep, it's working.
Can you
turn the volume up?
the volume doesn't seem to be.
It's not doing anything either, just a static screen at the moment.
Okay, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, just do it live.
Great. Thanks for your patience there. Great, so this is going to just be about a 5 or 10-minute demo of Provis, focusing on how we're leveraging Layout Builder and some of the Layout Builder modules in the Layout Builder ecosystem to unlock this kind of component-based approach for our clients. As I mentioned, Provis is a Kickstarter that has some common tools and content types. We also have a kind of a common set of widgets that we apply to a lot of our client projects. I'm just scrolling through what some of these look like. So I'm going to create an exemplary page to show what this looks like. I'm going to create a page to celebrate Drupal Camp Florida. And I'm starting with a blank page. I'm also going to add a menu link there so that we can see it a little bit later in the navigation. I'm starting with a blank page, which isn't very exciting, but when I jump over to Layout Builder, we're going to get this drag and drop interface. When I click Add Block, I get the array of common widgets and components that we use across our projects. I'm going to start with a banner. I'm going to jump over to my cheat sheet. So this is going to be a banner that I want to kind of use to celebrate Orlando and be a strong visual presence at the start of the page. So I just added a bunch of images from our media library, and I'm going to use the heading "Celebrating Drupal Camp" and add 10 years in the making to the subheading. I believe this is the 11th year, which is pretty exciting. We have some other options that we include with our widgets that, again, importantly conform to the design process and branding. So I'm able to add a search block and do some other items. So when I add that block, we can see a visual preview of it. I'm also, it's the 14th year. Thank you, Chris. They have 10 years on the of examples. So we'll update this to 14 years. And I'm going to also add a logo image. One of the key things about our approach is that, again, this is a drag and drop experience, but it's constrained to the design. And we think that that's kind of a really key and important thing, that we're not offering the ability for people to wildly change colors or go outside of the constraints of brand management. I'm going to add another, I'm going to add a section this time. We can add different column rows and other page building elements. I'm going to, next I want to have a frequently asked question list about Drupal Camp. Here I'm going to add some question answer items. So I guess 2006 might be the right answer here. I'm going to add a couple more just to kind of see what this looks like. What's the best way to celebrate is tell your friends about Drupal. And will we be in person next year? I really look forward to it. I'm going to keep that first item open, and we can see we have a celebration fact here. Next, I'm going to add a sign-up form for the after party. I'm going to call it after party. I'm going to grab that sign-up form, and now we have a way for folks to sign up. I'm going to add a couple more items. One of the widgets that we offer in Provis and to most of our clients is a number group. So that's a pretty common item across projects. Instead of adding the individual number groups, I'm going to grab one that I made previously and exhibit a really great feature provided by the module layout sections, or excuse me, section layout that allows you to both reuse components across layout builder, but also allows the content editors and users themselves to add to an expanding list of reusable components that have had some implementation already. So I could, as a content editor, clicking add to library is going to unlock that. I'm not sure if these numbers are completely accurate, but I'm guessing that 10,000 gallons of coffee shouldn't be too far off. Next, I'm going to add a photo gallery, and this is another common widget. I'm going to grab some of the previous Drupal camp logos and banners as part of that. And now we have a gallery. Lastly, I'm going to add some speakers. And to do that, I'm going to show off one of our other approaches, which is in this link group component. What we're doing here is providing a selection of different group displays that are part of the customized design that we worked through with the client. You're able with this to add bespoke content. We have a couple settings for this. One is automatic content, which ends up kind of being like views, where I can select a certain content type, give it some criteria, and decide how it's going to look. We can also add bespoke content using this tool, and that really helps us in terms of making it flexible with regard to how folks are adding content. We can offer different component outputs with a really flexible way of entering them, whether it's the most recent grouping of content or bespoke content that is kind of added on the fly. So we can see what we're calling the 3-item component, carousel component. I'm going to update that to our multi-card component. I can configure how many people are output here. Another one of our common display types is what we call 4-card featured. And as you can see, with this approach, the component doesn't really care about the content that's coming into it. It just cares about how we want it to look. I like the 3-item carousel, and I'm also going to add a link to the full roster of past speakers as a button. So now we have our page to help celebrate Drupal Camp Florida. I'm going to click Save Layout. Chris, I know you have a tradition of taking a selfie at Drupal Camp Florida. Maybe we can add those next time. Here's the rendered output of the items that we added to the page. We have the fact, some of the different components that we just looked at, we can jump back into Layout Builder and drag and drop these around, add different sections. And this is all, of course, something that the user can provide. I'm going to jump back to I'm going to jump back to our slide deck here to finish up. So this is one approach to that kind of site building. Again, we think it offers both a great kind of synthesis of both the content modeling and component implementation that gives a really flexible yet properly constrained experience for organizations that that want to empower their content creators but want to maintain the brand identity and brand management. One of the things that we're proud of about this approach is that it's very close to Drupal core, and so that's something that is good for clients because it's not really completely dependent on our on us. Some of the other other competing and similar tools out there are Site Studio by Acquia. This offers a lot more flexibility. You can change, it has a UI for editing stuff, editing components. It uses atomic design similar to our strategy. This offers a lot of the ability to change colors and padding and other width and layout items that is really powerful, but is something that we're trying to limit on in our strategy in order to maintain brand governance. Barbase is another really great Drupal distribution that's worth checking out as well. Drupal, Gutenberg, and WordPress, of course, have component-based UIs that allow a drag and drop experience that are compelling as well. Here's a link of resources in terms of Drupal templating, Storybook, and Emulsify, as well as a link to Provis. I'm going to stop sharing. That's our presentation on drag and drop layout in Drupal, and yeah, we're hoping that this shows an interesting approach and example for what Drupal is capable of, and something that can lead to kind of further discussion around the utility of both Layout Builder and some of the other Drupal tools.
Aaron, there's a couple of questions in the chat if you want to take a look.
Oh, awesome. Do you want to read one?
Yeah. Do you have to have a Drupal-based theme to use Emulsify in Drupal? If so, which one?
So Emulsify is
yeah, I corrected myself later. It is a theme, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Emulsify is a starter theme essentially. It comes with it has a really nice base for a component-based approach with the integration to Storybook.
Yeah, I think I was thrown off since you can use this on other CMS platforms. I guess I didn't realize there's a Drupal version, and then you probably got one that's specific to WordPress.
Yeah, there is a WordPress theme, Emulsify WordPress theme as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I think we're at time, but I'll give Aaron the last question and then we'll call it. Can you describe the biggest Storybook challenges with Drupal?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of Storybook itself,
there's a different workflow with doing everything outside of the CMS first, and it can be really powerful, but it can take the org a little time to kind of get used to that, because things can seem like they're not moving along really quickly, and then everything will kind of be done at once. The velocity gets a little weird, and it takes, and it can often involve Drupal themers or front-end themers that don't know Drupal, and so that kind of takes some getting used to, I think.
Okay, I think we are a couple minutes over time, so thank you, everybody. I will upload I actually put a link to the PDF to the slides already in the chat, but I'll also upload it wherever Florida Drupal Camp wants me to upload it, so you can get to it later. Thanks.
Thanks.
See you all at the after party.